I hope you're all doing well, or as well as can be expected as our democracy fails. Here are the progressive news headlines for today, August 4th, 2020. Over 300 groups are calling for the Senate to reject President Trump's pick to manage the nation's public lands. William Perry Pendley is the one that Trump wants, but these activist groups are saying that his decades-long public record of, well, let's call them extremist views and actions, basically evidence that he is completely, of what they say is abjectly unfit to hold this office. The groups include Public Citizen, the Sierra Club, the NAACP. They sent a letter to the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee with their demands. The letter reads, William Perry Pendley comes from the ideological fringes of society and is a racist with values that are deeply out of touch with the mainstream, including selling the very lands he's charged with managing. This is a massive environmental disaster on the brink, on the horizon. If you want to see the national park sold off, if you want to see any of the nation's public lands sold off to the oil and gas industry, then do nothing today and just hang out at your house. But if you don't want that, call your senator and tell them to oppose Trump's pick to manage public lands. And even if you have a Democrat where you just assume that senator is going to oppose Trump's picks to manage public land, you need to call anyway, because those senators need to say things in their press conferences like, we've gotten over 250,000 calls in 4 hours. That kind of thing. So they can say the public is outraged about this, especially senators who, might be from blue states that have their pockets of red areas, sort of like the one I'm living in right now. Anyway, today's the day. Call your senator and tell them to oppose Trump's pick to manage public lands. We could make a suggestion. Yosemite Sam would be a better person to manage the public lands. Anybody. Well, not anybody. I mean, the swamp is pretty well drained by now, so all the nasty characters from the bottom are visible. So let's just pick from anyone else. Anyway, Biden 2020, right? The International Rescue Committee, in other news, is working to have detainees released from ICE detention immediately, by the way, in order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The RRC blames the Trump administration's irresponsible actions for the ongoing spread of COVID in immigration detention centers across the U.S. and the countries where ICE has deported hundreds of people since March. So the people come here, they get held, they get COVID, they get sent back to their countries, and they spread COVID where they are. And, I don't know why the international community, well, it's the International Rescue Committee that's working on this, but the rest of the international community, maybe it's going to kind of start getting mad at us, I would think. ICE currently acknowledges 3,917 cases of COVID in detention facilities. ICE and the Trump administration does not care if these people die. And they certainly don't care if these people suffer. I mean, they wouldn't even give them soap and toothbrushes. How are they not all going to get COVID? And then sending them back to their countries is basically just saying, we don't care about your response to COVID. We are going to be a hotbed for COVID and send them to there. I mean, if Trump wants a war, this would be a good way to provoke one. Anyway, the IRC said that the agency's data, isn't even trustworthy. So those 3,917 cases, which sounds like a lot, is possibly ICE downplaying the number of cases they actually have. IRC has been warning that widespread testing is basically not being done in all facilities where there are tens of thousands of people being held. They are calling for the passage of the Immigration Enforcement Moratorium Act, which would halt the arrest and detention of asylum seekers during this pandemic. Meanwhile, Trump is taking photos outside of his, plastic fencing that he's putting up, calling it a wall between here and Mexico. You can go to rescue.org to join the IRC in calling for the passage of the Immigration Enforcement Moratorium Act, or just tell your senator when you make your call today that you want the immigration enforcement moratorium act passed, along with, you want him to or her to oppose Trump's pick to manage public lands. There's a lot to tell these senators. Hopefully they're not taking that August vacation like they always take. Nevada has passed legislation, by the way, to expand their vote by mail for November elections. Nevada coming out of the gate. This is despite attacks by President Trump's, earlier that day. During a special session on Sunday, the Nevada Senate approved implementation of mail-in voting, a system. This was like, Trump tweeted, of course, calling it a late night coup because voting, he's just totally showing his hand here. Calling vote by mail a late night coup. What needs to be said is basically saying that, if you vote this way, that voting is, somehow a partisan issue. Don't they know that old people need to vote by mail so that they don't get COVID and die? And you rely upon older voters to vote for you, Trump. I'm sure you're not watching this show, but hey, we'll see. Hello. He's not even reasonable in his craziness. Trump is calling for immediate litigation against this. Sandra Cosgrove, by the way, the president of the League of Women's Voters of Nevada, said the group supports broad vote by mail this year because Nevadans should not be put at risk of contracting or spreading the coronavirus. California, Vermont, and other states are also proactively sending mail-in ballots to voters because of the pandemic. If you are not registered to vote, or as Greg Palast says, Greg Palast, who we've had on this program regularly, says that even if you are registered to vote, check your voter registration now. It is August 4th. It takes a while to get this stuff done. So check it because you may have been scrubbed from the voting rolls. AARP, by the way, the nation's largest advocacy group for people 50 and over, launched a new voter mobilization campaign yesterday. AARP wants to ensure that older Americans can vote safely during the coronavirus pandemic and that local, state, and federal candidates are listening to their top concerns. According to AARP, seniors want to see Social Security and Medicare strengthened for obvious reasons. And they also want prescription drug prices lowered for obvious reasons. I hope these same seniors who are voting for it now didn't vote for Republicans all the way up until they're suddenly 50. And then they're like, oh, hey, this wasn't such a great idea. Now it's affecting me. Anyway, if you did, you better do a mea culpa and get to work trying to elect some Democrats and then hold those Democrats to be independent from corporate tyranny. You got your hands full. Anyway, seeing AARP get involved in the political fray is kind of interesting. They usually just try to get people to have some AARP related health insurance. They try to stay out of things, which is ridiculous. If past trends play out, the 50 plus vote will have a lot to do with deciding these key races. Again, they don't want to go and stand in line and vote for Trump. In 2016 in Wyoming, 81% of registered voters between the age of 70 and 79 voted in that same election. Just over half the voters of 30 and 40, and only 34% of voters aged 18 and 24 voted. 34% of the people who are going to be left with the entire enormous mess that we have left them came out to vote. So not sure how that plays out in terms of responsibility. But anyway, check your voter registration right now is what I'm saying, and get ready to vote. Go to action.aarp.org to protect the vote of those people 50 plus, because most of them want to make sure that Trump doesn't gut their Medicare and make their prescription drug prices even higher than he's allowing things to happen as he is right now. So there's that action. Also in the news today, if Congress does not extend the enhanced unemployment benefits that we've all been talking about, more than 5 million jobs will be lost. That is according to the Economic Policy Institute, which says the benefit has helped millions pay for food. We're talking food. People are not going out and buying, I don't know what you would consider I don't know, house plants, whatever you would consider extraneous. This is food and rent and essentials. Cutting off assistance will also make racial inequality worse because Black and brown communities are suffering more from this pandemic, both physically and economically. Workers of color who file for unemployment are much more likely to have their claims rejected. According to the analysis by the Bipartisan Policy Center, while workers who are white have received 78% of all unemployment dollars, compared with 20% of Black and Latino voters. This is insane. This is just awful. I mean, it's like they're dog whistling now. States' rights equals unemployment. I cannot believe this is happening, where we cannot all see the beauty of each other. I can, because I'm old enough to have seen the world for a while, but I think we can continue to work on it. So thanks for watching ACT.TV. I'm Julianna Forlano. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. We've got the progressive news headlines, see what the activists are doing, see what's important in the progresso sphere. Every Monday through Thursday that I host, you've got James on the channel who gives you editorial and news all in one, which is really terrific. We've got interviews. We've got all kinds of stuff on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe and ask your friends to subscribe. And I did hear you, those of you who wrote in the comments that you would like to see what the victories are that the progressives are having over in the course of this newscast. We do report them. Unfortunately, there's not a lot right now, but there is a lot of hard work going on. And, we will report the victories as they come up. It's funny because in doing the research every day, sometimes it's hard to find the actual victories because they're not reported on the AP, and sometimes they're reported in Politico, but with spin. So we're trying to be the anti-spin progressive movement news. Stay tuned to ACT.TV. And thanks for watching already.